What's poppin', y'all? Today we had a blessing bestowed upon us. I woke up, I went to sleep early. I wasn't looking forward to the Metro Boomin and Future album. I was gonna listen to it on my own time, right? Probably like a couple of days after it dropped. I knew it was gonna drop last night from when I'm recording this video, since I'm recording this like 8 a.m., 7 a.m. But I wake up at around maybe 4 or 5 a.m. and I see this whole thing going on with Kendrick and Drake. I'm like, yo, what did I miss? So I get to, get up, brush my teeth, do all of my morning routine. And I started looking into this. And I'm like, man, this is great. However, I started looking into the narrative surrounding it with people kind of coming at Kendrick for this. I'm like, what? Which is fair. I will say it's fair. I'm not going to say it's unfair. But first, I kind of want to get into what he talks about on the verse. It was on Future and Metro Boomin's album, Like That, their collaborative album. I'll probably have to do another video separate on Future and Drake because Metro Boomin, we know he has issues with Drake. Future also, there's been rumblings that him and Drake haven't been getting along that well. And I think it's evident on this album for some lines that Future drops, but also them just letting Kendrick get on here and pretty much unload the clip. It's kind of like a cosign. But Kendrick, he raps on this album a couple of lines. Pretty much the whole verse is about Drake and taking shots at Cole. Some of the lines that I like, where he's like, DOT, the money, power, respect. The last one is better. Say it's a lot of goofies with a check. He's saying, this is the thing, people say, yo, Kendrick doesn't have that strong of a hold in the game. He's always in and out. But he's definitely far more respected than Drake. I wouldn't say more respected than J. Cole, but he is more respected than Drake. Like, they kind of look at Drake as, for someone to consistently put out hits, which Drake does, which it's not easy to do, you have to be a bit malleable. And in that regard, people kind of lose respect for you. To a degree. You're not going to have like that strong following, like, damn, not only is this the guy, but this is the guy that does things on his own terms. So Kendrick's saying, he doesn't really care about the money and the power. He just wants everyone to understand and respect him as being the best. And then, the goofies with a check, Nike, he got to deal with Nike. I don't think Kendrick got to deal with Nike anymore. He used to have just like a shoe with them, but Drake has a big deal with Nike and Nocta. He says, they clicking up but cannot be legit. No 40 water, tell him. This is a couple of different references on here. I don't want to break down the whole thing because you guys can just do that yourselves. But I want to go through the obvious lines where he says, okay, F sneak dissing, first-person shooter. I hope they came with 3 switches. First-person shooter, obviously, Drake and Cole dropped that song last year. He says, mother F the big 3, it's just big me. I'm really like that, and your best work is a light pack. Prince outlive Mike Jack. Bum before all your dogs get buried. That's a K with all these 9s. He gon' see Pet Cemetery. Big 3 is what they've been calling these guys since 2023? 2023 this has been a thing. Which, it kind of goes to show, is the 2010s the best decade of music? Because who would you say, like for example, let's say you went to 1998 and you're like, yo, who's the big 3 here? And then you jump to 2008. Nobody would say that big 3 is the same. Yet, 2013, which these guys came out in like 2010, 11, really, they just like took over. And 2013, it was solidified, maybe even earlier, that they were the big 3. And then 10 years later, they're still the big 3, or 11 years later. Hey, that's a testament. Don't sleep on the 2010s. People overhated on the 2010s. And that'll be a topic for another video that I want to get into. I had it on my IG story, so it was an interesting poll. Circling back to this. People say, yo, why is he dissing Drake? Drake's been throwing slight shots at him for a long while. I don't know why Cole is just getting beat over the head. But one thing we need to do is get Cole out of this conversation. Cole does not match up to Kendrick Lamar rapping skill-wise ability. Cole has dropped some great albums. His best album is still 2014 Forest Hills Drive. But ability, he doesn't match up to Kendrick or Drake. Like Drake, when he's rapping, it's better than J. Cole. So let's just move J. Cole over as a piece, which is why I don't know why he got attacked. And some will say, oh, Kendrick, he's just always taking breaks and then he pops off and he tries to do this control thing and he's not throwing direct shots. Yo, this is one thing that I don't like. Oh, there are many things that I kind of don't like. I know that thought just came to somebody's mind while watching this, which is why I had to address it. So people want direct diss. I think direct disses work for certain types of rappers. If you're a rapper that is supremely skilled at rapping, metaphor, rhyme schemes, just you're a poet, why would you just flat out diss somebody and just drop their name? It doesn't get, this diss doesn't get more obvious. If you want it to become more obvious than this, like for example, I think a straight up diss applies to somebody like a Pooh Shiesty, who's been locked up for a while, or a Young Dolph, right? Where he's like, oh, Ho Gotti. Like rappers like that, where I wouldn't say they suck at rapping, because I like Young Dolph's music, but their rapping is not, you're not listening to them because you're, yo, this guy's outstanding with his skill. You're listening to him because, yo, this guy's got a good flow. You know, he drops a cool bar here and there. So it packs more of a punch when they drop a name. Whereas if Kendrick drops a name, it's kind of like asking a poet or a novel writer, like, hey, man, why are you putting like themes and motifs and metaphors and things that I have to uncover in your writing? Like, just tell it to me straight. Like, what? It'll just dilute the quality of the art. Isn't something we should want. And this is rap. We want people to rap, so we want people to listen. And this is where people said this rapping is whack. And I think that's because nothing just jumped at them first listen. Listen to this multiple times, read out the lyrics, and the more you catch things and references, then you're going to be like, okay, wow, this is actually really good. That's how it always starts. Like, everyone's like, this bar is kind of weird. And then like, oh, shoot, I just got it while on a night drive to get some gas station candy. Kendrick's last time he came at like this, I wouldn't say the big three, but when he's saying like he's the best, it was with the song with Baby Keem. This time he dedicated pretty much a whole verse to coming at Drake. And this puts a lot of pressure on Drake. Drake does have the public. Like, for example, he's got this new culture. You see Aiden Ross defending Drake, which they're in business together with the same company. Maybe they're not directly doing business. They're both sponsored by the same company. I would say they're friends. They're cool publicly. A lot of these streamers love Drake, and this is where it's bad for Kendrick, because the more people see you, there is this familiarity breeds contempt aspect to it, but if you're frequently delivering songs for people year after year after year, they build an affinity towards you, especially when you're dropping good music like Drake. And then Kendrick, he kind of comes in and out as he pleases. You know, they'll listen when you drop, and they may even like it, but they're like, man, this guy's been feeding me every day, and you come once in a blue moon on your own time. So they're just going to build that connection, that stronger connection with Drake, and are more willing to defend him. I wouldn't say I even consider these arguments where people are saying, yo, he's trying to make a moment. I will say the funny thing I read was when someone was like, yo, Kendrick always just has to step on Big Sean's moment, because Big Sean just dropped a freestyle. I did a video on it. I don't think I dropped it yet, because I'm just going to push this to the front of the queue. But I will drop it and I talk about it. But yeah, this pretty much just overshadowed everything that Big Sean was just doing in the past day or two. And I think Big Sean's getting ready to drop a song too. I don't want there to be actual disses, full-on beef between, like, rap beef, right? Between Kendrick and Drake. I just don't think it's something that, it just doesn't feel right. Like, them continuously taking shots like this, I like it more. And I do think the favor is in Drake. Like, for Drake to come out being really aggressive, I don't think it works, because people see Drake as the victim here. They're like, yo, why is he attacking Drake? Even though Drake does throw sly shots here and there for so many years. And it comes off like Kendrick is the aggressor here, especially after the last album, and people are saying Drake is doing way better and Kendrick is just, I wouldn't say, like, he's not active in the game. And then he says the Prince outlived Mike Jack. That was obviously a reference to, I think, Drake getting more Hot 100 entries than Michael Jackson. I think there is that always that argument between Prince and Michael Jackson, especially people from that generation. When I grew up, it was pretty much just Michael Jackson, but I didn't grow up in no 80s, right? So there are people that grew up in the 80s and maybe even early 90s that have this debate of, Prince versus Michael Jackson, where, if you're younger, you kind of don't even think of them in the same conversation or level. And that's because Michael Jackson had way more hits, but Prince kind of moved on his own time. And that's just two different paths. I don't think one is right. However, I will say that when it comes to history books, when it comes to impact, Kendrick Lamar really has it. I mean, an album that Kendrick Lamar dropped in 2015 to Pimp a Butterfly was being played and used in 2020 when everything was hectic and there was so much going on, and that became an anthem. And that type of music, does it really exist in Drake's catalog? No. But that's not a knock to Drake either, because Drake makes music that is probably the anthem to some people personally, just not collectively as a group. So it just depends on how you weigh it personally. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I personally listen to Drake way more than I do Kendrick Lamar, but I do acknowledge that Kendrick Lamar is, I would say, on par. I would put them on the same level. I don't think there's, I'm not going to be like, Kendrick doesn't show up. Because when Kendrick shows up, he shows up. And that's something that you have to give credit for, because there is this inherent pressure that builds up when you take so much time away from dropping music. If you guys recall, in the lead up to Views, Drake did still drop music, but yeah, he did drop music in the lead up to Views. But he was teasing Views for years, and then he drops If You're Reading This Too Late, and then he drops, no. The Playlist was after Views, wasn't it? Let me take a quick look at Drake's discography. But yeah, he's always putting something out. And in the beginning, there was some hate on Views for Drake, which I put out a tweet about it, which you should follow me on Twitter. I'm not going to pull up the actual tweet, but the sentiment was like people over-hated Views when it first came out. I'm pretty sure it has the most hits out of any Drake album, which, some people may not like the album, but they can acknowledge it has a bunch of hits. And that's where you get into the conversation of Kendrick Lamar. Sure, Mr. Morale may not have had hits, but people really do love that album. I'm interested to see how Drake addresses this. Drake's currently on tour. Drake's going to have to fall back a little bit because, people like Aiden Ross are going to hit. If they're talking to Drake publicly whatsoever, you already know they're going to mention this, and Drake doesn't want this mentioned, or Drake wants to respond to this on his own time, which is smart. So he might fall back a little bit from saying anything about this, which I would do the same thing. He's got to regroup and figure out where to go from here. Drake could sincerely just ignore this, but I don't know if he will, because this guy's, he is disgustingly obsessed with the game to such a level that it's admirable. Yeah, so there was like a 3-year gap between albums, but in between that, Drake released 2 mixtapes, which was If You're Reading This Too Late and What a Time to Be Alive. And I think that deflated a lot of the lead up to Views. But Kendrick has consistently delivered. Like Damn had multiple hits. It was a change in sound for Kendrick. Overall, I think people are doing Kendrick Lamar dirty. There are a lot of influencers, I guess, YouTubers that shill for Drake. Like they're on Drake's side. And I think unfairly on Drake's side. But we'll see how this pans out. Personally, I don't really have a side. I like to see this. I like the verse. I like Drake's music more than I like Kendrick's music, but that doesn't mean I prefer anybody else to win or something like that. I just enjoy all of this. And I would like to see Kendrick Lamar actually get one over on Drake. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching. Peace.